And the time has just gone 6:45 in the evening. It's a Sunday evening, and you've chosen to be with us rather than listening to that carte blanche music, which sends everyone into deep depression. So I'm joined today by Toni Gaddie and Toni Gaddie and Dina Diamond, and hopefully some of our rabbis will be joining us shortly as well. Dina Diamond, welcome. It feels like forever I haven't seen you. We need to try and get your sound sorted out because we can't hear anything that you're saying. Toni Gaddie, can you hear anything that Dina's saying?
No, but I think in situations like these, we don't want to embarrass someone, so we just pretend yeah, sure. Definitely.
And I see Rabbi Dovid Katz has joined us as well, although we can't see anything. So, Rob, if we can ask you to turn on your camera as well. I'm sure you have got interesting things to show us. So let's see. Can we hear you as well? Rob, speak to us. Have you ever heard a rabbi silent, Toni?
This is the first.
The first time we have stunned a rabbi into silence.
The first time a rabbi was couldn't speak was Moshe, but then we progressed, and just since then we couldn't keep them from stopping talking.
And like a jumping jack, Rabbi Dovid Katz springs up from underneath his desk.
Can you hear me?
We can hear you. Let's just move your camera a little bit so we can see more of you.
Better like this?
You're looking fantastic.
Thank you so much.
We always start, you're in London, your time is 10 to 6 in the evening. Tell us about your weather. That's the thing that makes us happiest in South Africa.
It's terrible weather, nothing like yours. Freezing cold, rain, gray sky.
And you live there voluntarily, is that correct?
Yeah, because everything else except for the weather is amazing.
Okay. Tell us who you are, which congregation?
Chabad West Hampstead, which is in between. If you know London, there's North London, Golders Green, Finchley, Hendon, which is kind of the Frum areas. You have Central London, which is Marylebone, Fitzrovia, Oxford Street. And in between, there's neighbours which are called St. John's Wood, Swiss Cottage, West Hampstead. And this is where we are. So smash in between the suburbs, which is where a lot of people live, and the West End, which is where everything happens.
We've donated you a lot.
You've got to admire the names of these areas. I mean, they sound so just pristine.
Okay.
We've donated you a lot of South Africans. Are you taking care of them?
We're trying. We're doing our best. And I tell you, South Africans, they're amazing. First of all, for us English people, the accent is very cool. So if a rabbi is South African and he's giving a talk, everyone goes to him just because of his accent, regardless of his content. He already has one up ahead.
Of course, we gave you a chief rabbi as well.
That's right, 100%. And here in England, everyone's very fond of your current chief rabbi, Rabbi Warren, what's his last name?
Goldstein.
Goldstein, yeah.
And of course,
of the Shabbat.
Our previous chief rabbi came from Scotland, Chief Rabbi Cyril Harris.
Yeah, and Chief Rabbi Cyril Harris's son,
Michael
Harris, he's a rabbi in our neighborhood in West Hampstead.
So do the two of you compete for congregants?
Not at all. We share a lot of stuff together. So for example, for minions, horses for courses, there's plenty of minions and people go where they like. But for Seder, for example, Rabbi Michael called me and said, look, I know you're doing one, we're not doing one. Can we send our congregants over? So I said, of course, they have a nice hall. And I've met with them a few times to try and see how we can work together using their hall. So we try and do things hand in hand.
So Toni Gaddie tells me he spent today cleaning for Pesach already. I mean, it's weeks, months, years. How long till Pesach, Toni?
2 weeks, Howard. Now's the time to panic.
10 days. It's not even 2 weeks, 9 days.
So Toni, did you wander around with your little candle and feather?
No, not yet, Howard. Today it was just like mopping and cleaning. And the problem is that you just go into this crazy Pesach mode where you're like, you got to clean the ceilings you know, because it's also like a good opportunity for spring cleaning. Because when last did you clean your ceilings? It's not that like your house is going to be trapped with paper, but yes, I cleaned my ceilings.
Danny, it's called gravity. Nothing sticks to the ceilings. Everything comes down, even the dirt.
Howard, if you had to go to your ceiling now, you would be horrified. What is growing there right now?
Don't
you've
even
never cleaned it.
So Dina Diamond, your father and my father have a little bit of a competition on who makes the better grain. Has your father made his grain yet? No, Dina still can't hear you.
Hold on a second.
I would pull out your headset. Although in Dina's house, you hear children screaming, dogs barking, babies crying.
Dina, whilst you're getting your audio, you know, I have a friend, a Chabad rabbi, he's a colleague, and he's in Spain, in Madrid, and they ordered a big batch of grain from London for Pesach, and unfortunately all got stuck on the plane, and they can't have it now for Seder, so they're singing all the grain in Spain is mainly on the plane.
My father's already made his grain, actually. Toni Gaddie, welcome. We're busy discussing Pesach preparations. Do you think everyone is insane? You're a clinical psychologist.
I would say maybe we all on the continuum, because being a little bit insane makes us human.
Well, Rabbi Dovid Hazdan, who is actually my rabbi, who has clearly the coolest hat collection in the world. Rob,
recently enhanced.
Tell us about that hat. It doesn't look like your normal black hat. And have you got a matching kapota?
No, actually what happened on the mountain was I was wearing a different kind of hat, a black hat on Shabbos, which certainly didn't fit in with the surrounds. But this is my latest souvenir, and I wear it on rare occasions, like when I'm on seminars with Howard Sackstein. This is the official hat.
You know, the main question that everyone asked when they saw we were doing a webinar together, and I said, well, Rabbi Hazdan's just been up a mountain. And the first question is, did he bring back any more tablets? We don't want any more laws.
Two's enough, more than enough.
The 2 tablets are absolutely enough. I hope you didn't bring back any new laws down from the mountain with you.
Insights, inspirations.
Well, when you came to the bottom, were there people worshiping golden calves?
I had a much better reception. I must say, Moshe Rabbeinu would be jealous of what I received. The people were well behaved and welcoming me graciously.
So now
have
the 2 Rabbi Dovids met each other?
No, we've just met. How are you, Rabbi Dovid Katz?
Shalom Aleichem. Lovely to meet you, and for good reasons, Baruch Hashem.
Yeah, I hear that you're Meshugas, your insanity preceded mine. So can you give me some insight into insanity?
Well, we heard before from Toni that it's normal, actually.
All insanity is normal. Yeah. So, Rabbi Katz, I must tell you that I spoke to Rabbi Hazdan's wife, Fagi, and first of all, Rabbi Hazdan, to you and Fagi, Mazal Tov, a bris coming up, another grandchild. What numbers do we count?
No, we don't count.
We don't count.
I must say that grandchildren are much less of a mountain than children. Much easier.
Rabbi Hazdan, a guy in my shul, he just had a grandson, and he told me he has so much nachas. He said, had I known the nachas I have from grandchildren, I would have had them before the children.
Skipped, yeah. We'd have skipped the generation, for sure.
So Fagi, Rabbi Hazdan's wife, insists that we cannot convince him tonight to go to Mount Everest with you.
Well, believe it or not.
Why not?
When I got into the car at the airport, when Fagi picked me up, my first words to her was, now it's Everest. And she said, not so fast. Absolutely not so fast.
Did she say, at whose home would you like me to drop you off after I collected you from the airport?
Yeah, more or less.
Dina Diamond, let's check if we can hear you talk.
All right. Can you hear me yet?
Yes,
no one's ever managed to silence you, Dina, ever.
It's a true story. Not even technology, but that's why I'm coming back.
So, Dina, we were talking
with my own bridge behind me.
We were talking about grain because our fathers are in a bit of a competition. Who makes the better grain? Has your father made it?
And it's a very It's a very, very, very serious competition, Howard. I don't want anyone to underestimate the seriousness with which they take their frame making, because it is of epic proportions. It is greater than leaving Egypt. So there was a problem because you couldn't get a hold of the route, because, normally you would get someone from Israel to bring it, and it wasn't the right season and there was a delay. So last week he went all the way over great distances and plains to go retrieve the route to make the crane. So he is making.
You mean he went to Oakland's vegetable shop like
no,
my father?
Much further than Oakland's. He had to go past Randburg. For people in Den Hazel,
no Jews ever been past Randburg. What do you mean?
For Glen Hazel people, it may mean taking a passport. I do understand, but that is the length to which he takes his serious level of crane making. Has your father managed to get his crane made?
My father got his crane his crane route from Oakland's. He's made, of course, my father's is red. There's beetroot in. Is your father's white or red?
He makes both.
Oh, wow.
We're in the Rainbow Nation. You can't discriminate. You need to make both options, because there's the bigger kick without the beetroot. So you've got to have that option to make people really cry.
And Danny, I seem to remember last year you added your next door neighbor into the competition as well, and gave us some unbelievable crane that no one's ever been able to actually stomach.
No, this year is going to be, I'm going to throw him into the mix again for the competition. He invited me to come and watch him make crane. First of all, I thought I was in a meth lab, because it was like literally pots boiling. I mean, really, it was like a dark room. But yeah, the same story. The roots, Howard. I got my roots. I'm not going to say where. I just thought get roots. He inspects it. He goes, well, "What is this? Is this like an insult?" I mean, the roots is where it's at.
So I just have some questions about meth labs. Have you seen a lot of them, Danny?
I watched Breaking Bad, so I've become a bit of a net. Yeah.
Okay. So for all of our guests who haven't been on a webinar before, we pre-chat until 7 o'clock. You'll see that hundreds and hundreds of people join us for the pre-chat. So if you've joined us already, please, in fact, tell us where you're watching from. And Maureen wants to know what recipe there is for the crane. Does anyone want to contribute?
I definitely won't contribute here.
I'll
leave that to Dina.
Beetroot. So you need, the most important thing, as we've mentioned, is the actual root, right?
You want thick roots.
Exactly.
Of horseradish. So if anyone who doesn't know what crane is horseradish. Horseradish is a root stronger than a radish. Horseradish, and it is made so that because the whole issue with Pesach is that we remember the bitter times, and the bitter herbs remind us of the bitter times of leaving Egypt and the hard times that the Jews had in Egypt. So this makes us cry, and if it doesn't make you cry, then whoever's making it feels mostly inadequate. So I've actually Googled while we were on here.
Vinegar. I'm going to guess vinegar,
yes, vinegar,
salt, sugar, beetroot, horseradish. Rabbi Hazdan, is this sacrilege?
I'm sorry, I can't add to the recipe. We take it neat, absolutely neat.
So you just chop it up. You just chop it up.
Chop it up and you grind it. Yeah, preferably by hand. But that's it. Nothing else gets added. That's the maximum effect.
And tell me, how do you get Hatzola on call to come and look after?
Would it be terrible if I say I buy mine from
not
a great Jewish deli? Then you're getting the real stuff that tastes really good too.
Oh, Toni, what are you saying here?
Toni, the tears need to run down your face. That's the whole kick of it.
So let's just say hello to a few of the people watching. There's Robin in Cape Town, and Stephen is in Cape Town, and John is in Pretoria, Ian is in Durbanville, Melanie is in in Durban as well. Lindsay's in Somerset West. I'm heading in your direction for a wedding this week. Renee is in Bantry Bay. Bernice is in Cape Town, and Shoshana is in Jerusalem, busy watching us. We've got Linda in San Diego, and love from beautiful Camps Bay, says Ingrid and Jonathan. Carol Marksfelder is in Cape Town, but she's watching today from Montreal. Gary Levy is in Renana, and Alan is watching from Toronto at the moment. Gary Levy is in Renana. Kerry is in Himmaville. Where on earth is Himmaville?
I was wondering the same thing.
Sounds like up in the sky.
Exactly. I think she's got in Himmelville. And Delia is in Hermanus. But the time, in fact, oh, sorry, Dina, you were saying?
No, I just looked up Himmelville. It's in the southern Drakensberg, KwaZulu-Natal.
Oh.
And while you were Googling the recipe for grain, can you give us quickly the recipe for grain?
So it's the grain, it's the root, it's vinegar, it's sugar. There was lemon here added, but we don't add lemon, and a little bit of salt and pepper.
And I see Kerry says Southern Drakensberg. John wants to know, Toni, do you still play tennis?
Only play very casually with my sons or my niece.
But is she playing paddle?
But I still enjoy it. Paddle, I have to be honest here. And I'm going to disappoint so many people. I don't go near paddle, because when you've played a lot of tennis or a lot of any sport, and then you go play paddle, there's a big risk of injury. So yeah, I don't go near paddle because I'd rather keep my body strong for more conservative exercise. So yeah.
So Ellen, just by the way, in East London. Mandy's in Philadelphia. Hermione's in London. Harold is in Port Elizabeth. Harold, I don't know if you saw the article in the Jewish Report. Was it this week about what's happening in Quebec with your water and electricity? Really frightening. And Paul is watching us from Tshwane, Pretoria. So the time has just gone 7 p.m. A huge welcome to everyone watching us this evening on Zoom, on YouTube, and on Facebook. We've got some amazing, exciting stories to tell, and we have gathered two of the craziest rabbis in the world. Crazy not because we think they're insane, crazy because they just do amazing things. So Danny Cato, you're on controls this evening. Thank you very much. If you have any questions or comments for any of the panelists or anyone else, please remember you can post them on the chat, on YouTube, on Zoom, or on Facebook, and Danny will make sure that everyone's comments are brought across. And this is not a monologue. This is a conversation. So please use the Q&A and the chat and speak to all of our panelists this evening. This, Dina, can you believe it? What webinar is this? Do you know the number?
141.
148.
Oh, gosh. Jeez, 148. Who would have thunk?
148 webinars brought to you by the South African Jewish Report over the last 3 years. Wow. Such a privilege and pleasure to do it, having now been watched by approximately 2.7 million people around the globe. And I think this evening, like always, we have people watching us in South Africa. I see Cheryl has just said hello from Renana, but people watch us all over the world. And most importantly, because this is a service brought to you by the South African Jewish Report, please don't forget to go pick up your latest edition of the Jewish Report newspaper. And on the front page this week is this most ridiculous story. There was Israel Apartheid Week this week at the University of Cape Town. And who do they invite to the University of Cape Town? They invite representatives not just of Hamas, but of Islamic Jihad as well. Now, Islamic Jihad is a terrorist organization designated as a terrorist organization by Australia, by the European Union, by the UK, by the United States, and yet they are guests at the University of Cape Town, where they broadcast via Zoom into the University of Cape Town from where? Iran. Of course, they broadcast in from Iran. If you haven't picked up your copy of the Jewish Report, go to your local CNA, your exclusive books, your school, your butchery, your spaza shop, your local garage. Go anywhere and pick up a copy of the Jewish Report newspaper. And if you can't get a hard copy, don't forget that you can, in fact, read the entire edition online at www.sajr.co.za. You can either download the entire edition, or alternatively, you can look at each of the individual articles by themselves as well. Don't forget that all of our webinars, approximately 145 of the 148 that we've broadcast, are actually all available to you if you go onto the Jewish Report webinar section of the Jewish Report website. So, Danny, if we can just flip that over, I think you have there as well. Oh, we don't have that one, but they're available on the Jewish Report website, and you can go onto YouTube and click on the Jewish Report on YouTube as well, and you'll be able to access everything there as well. If you are watching us tonight on YouTube, please go click the subscribe and like button. That will really help us in our ability to contact you and notify you when we have new webinars on as well. Now, Dina Diamond, you're with us tonight because you're running Thursday night's webinar. Tell us what's on Thursday night.
Indeed. So as Danny knows, and he's pointed out quite accurately, Pesach, she is coming. So we are running our annual, because it's become annual, Pesach webinar that we do. We always like to give a little flavor to Pesach with our cooking and some tips for the Seder and some nice, exciting dishes. So we have got Rotem Liebesim, who is the internationally renowned Israeli chef who is going to cook out some like beautiful, surprising dishes, as well as our local yokel, our wonderful Romy Rubinovitz, who is going to make us something delicious and sublime for dessert. But we always like to throw it in there, a bit of mix and make it completely unpredictable. So the title of it is From the Pyramids to Potato Kugel. So we are going to be talking about Egypt and the Exodus from Egypt. We're going to have historical evidence. Howard spoke to the previous deputy Israeli ambassador to Cairo. So that is going to be super, super interesting. Plus, we have a documentary on Cairo, on the Jews in Egypt currently. So we also have a musical deluge. So Danny, you can add in some, but I don't know, we've got Honey G, we've got amazing, beautiful music from like was surrounding the Seder and some really cool stuff that we're going to be looking at. So yeah, it is going to be jam-packed, but also different. So I don't think you know what's coming up. So we're going to literally have from the pyramids to the potato kugel just for you. So not to miss, and very, very exciting.
So Dina, have you managed to pull out a rabbi to give us some good Pesach advice as well?
Oh, of course. I managed to get Rabbi Goldstein, but not the chief. We got Rabbi Ryan Goldstein, who says he's not actually related, but we all related. So he will also be giving us some spiritual insights into why the Jews actually were in Egypt. I mean, why did God put us there? So just know that you are going to get everything in this webinar. It is a complete matzah pudding. So just stay tuned. It is Thursday evening, the 30th at 8 o'clock. So please tune in for a little bit of inspiration, a little bit of cooking tips, and some history lessons.
So we've got recipes, we've got archaeology, we've got some politics, we've got some Jews in Egypt, we've got some music all thrown together Thursday evening, 8 o'clock. Danny, please can you post into the chat both here on YouTube and on Zoom and on Facebook where people can register, because we'll see everyone on Thursday evening for the most incredible webinar that will be hosted by Dina. I'll be in Cape Town at a wedding at the time.
Unusual.
Unusual. My second wedding in 2 weeks. What can I do? Dina, thank you for joining us this evening. We'll see you on Thursday.
Absolutely. Thank you. I can't wait to listen to these rabbi stories, because it is something I wish I'd always done, is climb mountains. But that's why I leave it up to the rabbis, got to do something. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Dina. And let us not forget that tonight's broadcast, in fact, has been sponsored and brought to you by Cape Union Mart. So if you need to go climbing, or if you need clothes, or if you need camping gear, Cape Union Mart is really the place you need to go to. And most importantly, what's important this week is because the chairman of Cape Union Mart, Philip Kravitz, celebrates his birthday on Wednesday. So a huge happy birthday to you, Philip. Hope it's going to be a remarkable year ahead. But let's hear from Cape Union Mart, and then we'll begin.
What's out there? Mountains are out there. 1,000 horizons are out there. Legendary places, trails, and memories are out there. It's all out there. So, are you really going to let a little winter stop you? Conquer the cold with K-Way. What's out there?
So what is out there? And let us start asking that question to Rabbi Dovid Hazdan. Rov, you're 60-something. People in their 60s don't suddenly wake up one morning and decide that they're going to climb mountains. What on earth is wrong with you?
I'm trying to work that out, Howard. Great to be with everyone. So I think that I'm just a slow reactor to my inner desires. I think I started wanting to climb Kilimanjaro when I was 20. So 44 years is a long time to finally realize the dream. I did have a bucket list. The catalyst was suddenly there was a brother-in-law in Montreal who said he's going. It was about 6 weeks after entry had been closed. It was for charity, for a Chabad international charity for children who have special needs. Special needs is dealt with through Friendship Circle. They get volunteers, teenagers to help those who are needy. And that just gave me an added dimension. It wasn't just about a bucket list. It was about doing something that was going to benefit somebody else. That was the catalyst. And I said, I'm in. It wasn't even a question. I'm in. So
tell me, how do you prepare for something like that?
I got a lot of advice. The first advice that I got was don't do it. I had people looking at me skeptically, like, are you sure? Like at your age, people try to be kind in their reactions, but basically the feeling I was getting was, bad idea, stick to your day job. This is not what you want to be doing with your life. But when I worked through that advice, which was not necessarily going to be assisting me, I got real advice from people who had done it. And there was an issue of getting strength in being able to carry a load and being able to get up mountains. It wasn't about speed. It wasn't about running. So 4 days a week, 4 mornings a week, I was up at 4, left home at about 4:30, 3 days a week, walked to Monroe Drive, which we know is a feature of Johannesburg, up to the top. And over the weeks of preparation, I had 6 of them. I just built up. So first it was 2 times, then 3, then eventually 10 times up and down Monroe Drive. And then with 2 kilos and 5 kilos, then 10 kilos on my back. So I began to build up the strength. I felt that I had the strength. Sundays, I would do the steps at Westcliff. There are 209 of them. You can count me. There are absolutely 209 steps. When you do that 10 times on a Sunday morning, you come to shul a little weary, but inspired. And there are a few tricks to being able to get up at 4 o'clock in the morning to do something as insane as this.
So tell us, were you prepared? I mean, was that enough? And how fit do you have to be in order to embark on something like this?
I think I was prepared. I went to a biokineticist once a week who gave me a few directions in stretching exercises. I really think I was prepared at the end of 6 weeks. Maybe longer would have been a better time of preparation. I had the strength. I think my 64-year-old knees, that's about 128 years between them, really felt that they were buckling on the way down. So believe it or not, the way down presented more of a question in my mind. But thank God, managed the altitude, which is something you're not sure you're going to manage. And I was prepared and I was strong.
So when the moment arrives, where do you start? I presume you climb from the Tanzanian side from Arusha. How do you get there? How does this wall work? Tell us about the team you're going to climb with.
So I left from Johannesburg. Everyone else was from Canada and America, 14 guys in the team, the other 13 guys from other countries. I flew to Nairobi, waited there for a while, and then another hour back. So you're actually flying up and then down a bit to Kilimanjaro International Airport. On the way in, I landed at night, so I couldn't see the mountain. It was probably a good thing. It was actually a good thing that I couldn't see the mountain. I think if I'd seen the mountain, I might have got onto the next plane back. And then I was met at the airport by the support team on the ground. I had with me 2 massive bags of meat from Moishe's Butchery. Everybody enjoyed the best biltong on this trip. There were a few novel things about this climb. South African biltong was definitely one of them. And then we waited for everyone to gather. So we had a day before we actually hiked in which everyone was either landing or coming, or some of the kids, the younger guys had spent time in the Serengeti. So that was the Tuesday gathering time, giving us the instructions for the week. And then Wednesday morning, a bus to the Rongai Gate, which is on the northern side of the mountain, looking out towards Kenya. So we're actually looking at Kenya when we started the mountain, and when we looked backwards, everything was about Kenya. And then slowly we made our way up the mountain over the days that ensued.
And you were climbing with a lot of people much younger than you. What did they think when they see the 64-year-old?
So very much the same as the first reactions of people who believed in my safety on the ground over here. Firstly, they were very skeptical. A rabbi was going to cramp their style for sure, the wrong age. And I was affectionately, and I think skeptically, named Papa, which in Swahili you can imagine means the Zayda who might not make it. I think that's what it meant. But anyway, affectionately Papa, that was my name for the rest of the trip. And the young guys were strong, very strong. I carried the Torah that was in my backpack for the first day, and thereafter they said, definitely, we're going to share this. We all want to have an opportunity to carry the Torah. They had, the friendship circle had asked the question, can we give the Torah to the Sherpas so that they carry it? Because they're carrying all the heavy stuff, like they really carry. And we debated, and I said, nothing doing. Jews carry the Sefer Torah. The Sefer Torah carries the Jews. That's the truth. And we carry this treasure in our backpack. So I had this added weight in my back, but something very, very unique that accompanied us. It was Rosh Chodesh, 2 days on the way. So we literally read from the Torah every day.
So I want to stop at that point in time, because when you're climbing a mountain, every ounce in your backpack actually counts. So you don't want to take anything superfluous with. You don't want to take with a black hat and kapota. You don't want to carry a Torah. You don't want to carry Tefillin. But what did you have in your backpack?
So not only a pair of Tefillin, but Chabad guys wear 2 pairs of Tefillin. There's Rashi and Rabbeinu Tam, and a talus. Not a thin little talus, but a talus. Then the kapota and the black hat was very much a question. Anybody who had been up the mountain, even guys from the Chabad ilk, had told me, you don't take a kapota on the mountain. It just doesn't go. That's not where it was invented.
What is a kapota? Just explain to us what a kapota is.
A kapota is a black long coat that Hasidic and other people, Jews, wear, which sometimes differentiates us and allows people in the street, when I wish them good morning and they say good Shabbos, and I say, how do you know that I'm Jewish? And obviously they do, because when you wear a kapota, you're probably Jewish 9 times out of 10, and not a hat from Kilimanjaro, but a black hat. So everyone advised me, do not take a kapota and a black hat up the mountain. That's not the proper attire and the gear that goes up the mountain. So I thought about it, and these were moments of reflection. I've been married for 41 years. I've worn a kapota and a hat every single Shabbos since I'm married. So now, because I'm up the mountain, I'm not going to wear my regular Shabbos clothing. So when I emerged from the tent dressed in a kapota and a black hat, which normally has to be very carefully handled, but I took an old hat and I rolled it up into a very tight roll, and that was right in the corner of the backpack. And I emerged with my black hat and my kapota. The Sherpas, the porters, thought that the Messiah had arrived. That this was way off the chart. My own group thought this was like a little over the top. But it was Shabbos, and we entered into this whole new zone after 3 days of hiking, and that's the day that I wore my kapota.
So tell us about the hike. How does it begin? Tell us how the climbing begins. Is it a tough climb? Is it a hard walk? Is it a hike? What do you wear? Tell us about how it goes.
So what is very interesting about the hike is that you want to dress for an occasion. So you would normally ask and say, what should I wear? What's the weather like? So you do a weather report. Let's find out, what is it going to rain? You have no idea, because its mountain has its own weather patterns. But more than that, each day is a totally new world, a new weather pattern, a new environment, a brand new world that you're traversing. So the first day, it was so hot. We walked through a rainforest and tree cover. It was thick. The air was thick. You heard the mosquitoes. I didn't wear a t-shirt on top of my talus cotton. My under talus, which I wear every single day underneath my shirt. Again, it was a debate. Do you wear a cotton one? I normally wear a wool one. So let me be as normal as I can be while I'm being insane. So my talus cotton was flying in the wind the first day. By the second day, firstly, the cover opens and you see the mountain for the first time. Howard, when I saw that mountain, it was a moment of truth, because the mountain was not only high and so high into the sky, it was nowhere near us. There were mountains and mountains even to get to the mountain. It was like after a whole day of hiking and another few hours into the next day, we're nowhere near this place. How are we ever going to get there? And that's in your mental concentration, focus, determination has to kick in, because that's what you're walking on, not just your legs. Your mind is absolutely focused. By the third day, there was ice. I had my little Negelwasser, in the morning, we wash our hands, each hand back and forward, back and forward. So I had this little quart that we wash with. By the third day, when I put that outside my tent, it was iced over. We had ice on the tent. We had 3 inches of snow on the Shabbos on the tent. So then it was freezing. So you've got to dress for all these different occasions. And I don't know how much time, Howard, but each of these concepts that I'm talking about have magnificent life messages, which if I can, I'd love to share.
Please tell us, as you're climbing the mountain, tell us the lessons that you learned.
So this is going through my mind. On a mountain, you never think about distance. Distance is a half of the problem. On the mountain, your only real consideration is altitude, because you can keep going another hour if you're walking a simple walk. But if it's up and the incline is very steep, on the last night, it's 1 kilometer up, straight up, 1,000 meters on the last night. So when you think altitude, you don't think distance. And we began to share this point about life itself. Life has many distance points that we have to traverse. We have a birthday and then another birthday and then another. The distance between them is the same. The distance between one Wednesday and another, and one Pesach and another, is the same. The question that is fundamental to our lives is altitude. What did I do with the distance? Have I grown? Have I become bigger? Have I developed myself? Am I doing more this year than I did last year? Have I lifted somebody else next to me to a height that person didn't attain, physically, emotionally, religiously, spiritually? We have to be conscious of altitude. And that became a whole new trigger relating to everything. Because if one is aware of this altitude approach to life, then what one realizes is that you see the world very differently. The first day, you see a world, and you could determine your future and your destination and your life by what you see around you. It's hot and it's humid. That could be your whole consideration. And you walk up just one day. It's a new world, brand new world. And in this brand new world, there is different scenery, different weather patterns, everything's different. What changed? What changed was that you took yourself up the altitude. When you walk to a new height, you perceive yourself differently. And then a third thing, you begin to look at the world differently, because your view of the world changes. What you saw the first day was the bottoms, you're looking up at the tree cover. When you're looking at the second day, you're looking down and you're seeing Arusha from the heights. And each day you perceive things very differently. Different air, different surrounds, different weather. And that became a challenge. How do we achieve the altitude in our lives? When we elevate ourselves to a new height, we can look at ourselves differently. We see strengths we never saw before. We see opportunities we never saw before. We see the world differently. We look at others and we see their strengths as we've never seen them before. That's the world of altitude. When you're considering how can I grow and how can I develop, give us a whole new insight into life. These are some of the things that we verbringed about. We shared these thoughts and sang, and the whole Shabbos. There was nothing else to do on Shabbos. There was nowhere to go. We were in the central tent. We sang and davened and read the Torah. I did a conclusion of a tractate of Talmud because I had Yortzeit for my father on that Shabbos. We did a Hasidic discourse. That was it. We sang, we learned, and we shared stories. Insight was a different world. We weren't caught up in the superficial. It was about meaning, about journeys, about life.
So tell us about Shabbos on the mountain. First of all, do you create an Eruv around your tents? And obviously you've got a whole lot of porters, what in the Himalayas they're called Sherpas, but in Tanzania and Kenya, they would be porters. What did they think of you?
So there was a tremendous respect. I can't describe enough the respect that one sensed. It wasn't their first time. Many of them had been with a religious group, a Torah group beforehand. So they were aware even of an Eruv. There'd been groups before. They'd never seen a Torah. The Eruv sticks that they carried up had the string that goes around it, just like we have in Johannesburg. That was just around the circle of tents so that we could carry from one tent to another. What it tells us is that whenever you try and do something out of the ordinary, the first thing people say is, it can't be done. There's this, I'll tell you, can I list you the problems at Shabbos, and there's kosher, and these are the impossible things. That's great. Identify problems and then find the solutions. There are solutions. We needed to not walk on Shabbos, but the fourth day, they advised us to be a day to get used to the altitude, combine both and make it Shabbos. So by the time Shabbos came, we'd had a circle of an Eruv all the way around the tent. The lights that were set up in the two portable chemical toilets that were carried with our group, for our group by the porters. Believe it or not, that happens. There were lights in them for Shabbos by pre-charged batteries that stayed on for the whole night. And then there was the food. So challahs, nobody could slip down. Let's just go to the bakery and see what's happening in Glen Hazel for Shabbos. Right? Not the chrein and not the challah, forget it. So we baked pita breads on the back of the pots, and that was our two breads for the nighttime and for the morning. They told us not to bring any alcohol. I must confess that I smuggled a few little bottles that we used during COVID at the Great Park Synagogue, tiny little bottles of whiskey, but we also had wine for Kiddush. What did the guys think of us? The guy in charge of the company, not in charge, the guy who owned the company that took us up the mountain, Asante Tours, was the owner of the tour company and the owner of the hotel that we stayed in, a very obviously accomplished businessman in Tanzania, and he decided to come with us. He was blown away. He was blown away by the discipline that no matter how early it is we have to leave, there's an hour before that everyone was up to be able to daven. They watched us. They saw us singing. They saw the Torah, reading from the Torah. They wanted to actually see how the Torah was made. So they were, when it came to Shabbos, they were absolutely blown away by the singing the whole Shabbos. They knew that I'm an early riser always. So 4:30 in the morning, I was in the makeshift kitchen, cracking the eggs open for everybody to check the eggs as we do, and to light the fires as we do. So they knew that there's certain technicalities that have to be fulfilled for the kashrut, for the kosher elements, for the Shabbos elements, the Jewish elements. It was something that they embraced with great admiration.
Before you tell us about the final ascent to the peak and what you learned by getting to the peak, I want to talk about this issue because it was your father's yahrzeit. And you must have been in two minds on whether, in fact, you remain in Johannesburg with your family on that day or whether you climb a mountain. Take us through your thought patterns that you went through and the decision that you made and whether you're happy with that decision.
So obviously, it did impact on me initially, and I said yes right away, as I said when I was invited. I then looked at the calendar and saw it was yahrzeit, called back to say absolutely not, I'm not coming. Then I asked, is there a minyan? Can we bring a Sefer Torah? I think there was a slow response because they thought maybe I was asking them to find and source a Torah, which I said I'd bring from here. Once I had the essential ingredients to be able to commemorate the yahrzeit, I felt that sharing a tractate of Talmud, concluding it, and sharing Torah with the guys in the group, it was certainly going to be a memorable yahrzeit. And it was coming just at the time, Howard, that I was publishing, it was actually only released this week, a biography on my father, was printed and released in Israel in Hebrew and presently being translated. So I felt very close to my father. I'd learned a lot in these last months and years in producing this book through all the documents that he had left behind. So, you know, in shul, I'm always quoting my father. He is certainly present in my life in a way that I share him all the time. This was certainly not, I think, being flippant about a yahrzeit. I felt that I was going to commemorate this yahrzeit in a very unique way that I would remember for the rest of my life.
Just for those people who don't know what a yahrzeit is, won't you just give us a moment on that?
So a yahrzeit, everything in Judaism has a time, and time is so significant. And each year when an event takes place, we relive that event. Pesach is coming soon, and it's not just let's have some Bible stories about what happened historically. Let's have a history lesson. No, much more than that. We relive it. We re-experience it. We actually put ourselves into the picture, and it becomes part of our journey. Liberation, freedom. What does it mean for me in 2023? That is how we relive. And the same thing applies to birthdays. It's not just saying, let's have a candle and celebrate another year. It's a meaningful moment to reflect on life and to say, how can next year be better? And then anniversaries and yahrzeit. Yahrzeit is the day in which a soul, so relevant to oneself, completed its task on this world, and God deemed it that soul would return to heaven. That is a significant moment in which that life completed its journey in this world. So we really relive that experience. We think of the person, we do things that could be of benefit to that person. One's very bonded to the person one is remembering on the anniversary of their passing, which we know as a yahrzeit.
So Rolf, tell us about the final ascent on the peak of Kilimanjaro.
So that's probably the most significant part of the hike. Most of the journey is literally a hard hike. If you've done Fani Buerta Trail, which I've done with the students of Torah Academy, if you've done the Drakensberg and the Tugela Falls and up on top of the amphitheater, I've done that with my students at Torah Academy. So the hike is probably most of the way the same. That last night is very different. Different because it begins after a whole day of hiking and a few hours of resting. It begins at midnight. You have a flashlight attached to your head. You now realize what the season is. You're no longer in your tropical outfit. You're now wearing layers and layers and layers of clothing and scarves and beanies and double socks and triple socks and double pants. And then all that you see is the boots of the back of the boots of the person in front of you. That's all you see. You see nothing of the mountain. You see the snow, which had fallen that Shabbos and had transformed the mountain that we'd seen the whole week. It was brown, it was now white because of the snow. And we trudged up from 11:45 until 7:15. In my head, I was thinking, like, when you go on holiday with the kids, then one of the things you tell them before you leave is just don't say the words, "Are we there yet?" You know that? Because 5 minutes after you leave your driveway, the first kid says, "Are we there yet?" And it's Cape Town, and you know that's going to be like 18 hours. You know, we don't know, we're not there yet. We're definitely not there yet. So in my mind, like I was thinking, are we there yet? And then reminding myself, sunrise is when we're on the mountain. This is about 7 hours. So you walk and you walk and you walk in the snow and you trudge, not fast. Pole pole is the war cry on the mountain, which means slow and steady. It's not about racing. And as the air gets thinner and thinner, you feel like you are breathing through a sock. And again, your mind has to kick in because you could panic, you could try and gasp, you could cause the problem that isn't there, but just to stay calm and to remind yourself, I'm going step by step, I'm going to get there. And that is 7 hours. We stopped once or twice just to have, I had to change batteries on my flashlight, which I'd luckily or perceptively taken an extra load of batteries. And then you get to the top. And even just before we get to the top, a lot of the words that are used relating to mountains in the vocabulary of people is normally very aggressive language, like, you're going to conquer the mountain. This is an assault on the summit. We're going to smash this thing. We're going to what? We're going to nothing. When you're walking up the side of that mountain, you are humble. And what was so definitely different is that all the days prior to that night, There were war cries. We were singing, we were shouting, we were egging each other on. There was interaction. The group dynamic was everything. We were carried by each other. The strength of the group was exponentially greater than the sum of all of us individuals. Everything was about the group. That last night, it was silent. It was absolutely quiet. It reached to another place completely. It was inner strength. This was a lech lecha, a journey into self that nobody can help you get to. This is about you. And you on the back of all of the strength of the group. But that night, the silence, the trudging step by step for 7 hours, your mind is going through so many things that remind you about strength and about, I once did a fire walk many years ago when I was even more mad than I am right now with the CSO. They did a training and they got me walking, 20, 30 meters across glowing hot coals. And they taught me that you think, as you take the first step, think about the rival on the other side and a winning stance and see the victory lap. Just keep that in your mind. I had this picture of me with a Great Park flag and the Torah Academy flag on the top of the mountain, concentrating, thinking, but this was inner strength. This was now the silence of your inner being. It was no longer the journey of the group. This was about you. We got to the top. The sun was just coming over the top. I have such magnificent pictures. I did send you. I hope we're able to share them as well. What looks like the ocean is really the cloud cover, thousands of feet below you, and the glaciers and people coming up from all different sides, from all different groups that were now ascending to the top of the mountain. And you now only have just a few minutes at the top. And how about that as a message? That you've spent 6 weeks training, 4.5 days, 5 days to get up to the top. And how long do you spend at the top? 10 minutes. You could say, this is not worth it. This is absolutely useless. I prepared so much and there was nothing in it. I was there for 10 minutes. But of course, the message is this was not about the 10 minutes on the top. This was about the journey, the training, the focus, the commitment, the involvement, the group dynamic, and the silence. There's the Eruv that you can see right now. And the silence of all of us doing step by step to get to the top. So the dynamic and the energy was magnificent, was so powerful, was so special. That's a kapota that you can now see with the old black hat. The few minutes at the top, I unrolled my one flag, which is the friendship circle. Can you believe this picture? These are the stars that I would lie on my back and look up to the sky, and you're literally seeing the Milky Way, the outline of the mountains in front of us, not the actual mountain, but this is Mount Meru, the second last night before the summit. And this is what the sky looked like. I mean, you are mesmerized by the beauty of Hashem's world and the greatness of the opportunity of being on the mountain. And everyone just takes their picture very briefly, and then you start making your way down. And I want to just share one thought about the way down. The way down, in my mind, took more concentration and mental focus than the way up, because the way down, the knees, as I said, were really getting wobbly. They were test. This is my best picture. You have the flashlight on the top of the head and you're looking out, and the white beyond the mountain before the sunset of the clouds thousands of feet below us. It was just majestic. It was magnificent. So why would it be that the way down is even more difficult or challenging than the way up? This was the final ascent to the far point, which is the highest point. And we spoke about that, the team friendship. We spoke about the fact that life is about aspiring to reach a goal, and we need to reach the goals of life. But Judaism never leaves us at the top of an inspiration. The inspiration of Judaism has to be translated into tomorrow. I always feel that at the end of Yom Kippur, when you've been through a whole day with such an intensity of prayer and a connectedness to Hashem, and then comes Mariv, and everyone's running because you're going to have our first drink of water, and this is your regular Mariv, the evening service following a whole day of Yom Kippur, which is no different from tomorrow's and the next night. It's the regular. It's the pedestrian moments of Judaism. And Judaism says, take the high moments, translate them into the average moments, bring the inspiration into the regular details of life. It's always growth. You don't reach the top and then fall off. You don't even reach the top and try and hold on. You take the top and you translate it into the life that you live every single day. So the message was, it is harder to take it down. Going up, you've got an inspiration and you want a goal to reach and you want to hold your flag, all the things that are going through your mind. But then when you reach that top, the job is to bring it down. And sometimes that's harder. And that's the goal. Take the inspirations of life and don't let them be a flash in the pan that happened on a particular date in a particular year of your life. Take that message and make sure that it impacts on the life that lies beyond. And I hope, this is really my hope, that I don't become desensitized. I'm so inspired. I'm so excited about this event in my life. I hope that I never allow it to become something that was a distant memory. The messages that I'm trying to share and many more that are buzzing through my mind, I hope that they remain with me, and that makes the journey down even more meaningful and sometimes more difficult.
Rova, at this point in time, I want to bring in Toni Gaddie. Toni Gaddie is a clinical psychologist. She's a performance coach. She played Wimbledon. Toni, mountaineers tell you that the top is only halfway. And I think that's the message that Rabbi Hazdan is doing. But I want to bring this, it's not just about climbing mountains. It's about the challenges we face in our everyday life. So my first question to you is, what makes us grasp these bigger challenges? You know, when they said to Hillary, why do you want to climb Everest? He said, because it's there. But what makes us want to step out of our normal day-to-day life to take on these additional challenges?
I just first want to say that, you know, the lessons that Rabbi Hazdan has shared are absolutely remarkable. He's also my rabbi. I don't go to shul as much as Howie, but every time
he says, I don't go to shul enough either, don't worry.
Every time he speaks, I'm so inspired and I learn so much. So I really appreciate that story. So as you heard, I think the first thing is all about a greater purpose. Many times we do crazy things like at 64 climbing a mountain because there's a greater purpose. There's raising money for a very good cause, or doing something to prove to yourself, if you've just recovered from an illness, that you actually can, that you still trust yourself, or you still have faith in humanity, or you still have faith in your religious belief or the universe around you. So I think firstly, it's about, for many, a greater purpose. For other times, like Rabbi said, he always had this desire. And many people have unique desires. And I think it's an amazing, when you have that opportunity to fulfill a desire, it's incredibly exhilarating. So those are the two positive ones, that there's a greater purpose that we feel we need to achieve this particular goal because it is going to give inspiration and it's going to raise money for others. The other thing is fulfilling the desire. And then many times we just feel like we're stuck in our lives, and we're going through the motions of the redundancy of daily life without reflecting, like the Rav spoke about, without growing, without stretching ourselves, and climbing a mountain or doing something that really stretches the mind and body, shakes up. It shakes up our whole mindset and the way we live our ordinary life, and then hopefully achieving that goal, that big challenge we can bring back. And then we relate to the whole world differently. He said it so well. When you have been shaken up and when you are stretched mentally and physically, and you've really reflected and taken on those learnings, you come back a different person. You relate to yourself differently. And then when you relate to yourself differently, you relate to others differently. And then the whole world seems different. So yes, I hope I answered your question.
So, Toni, in our day-to-day lives, is it important that we set goals for ourselves beyond our normal? In business, people talk about BHAGs, big, hairy, audacious goals, something that's probably just out of reach, but maybe if we try hard enough, we can actually get there in business with huge rewards if we actually get it. Should we, as people in our everyday life, be setting BHAGs or goals for ourselves beyond the normal day-to-day humdrum of our lives?
No, it's so interesting when you study as many champions as I've studied. So my passion is champions. It was champions because my goal was to become a champion, a Wimbledon champion, and I failed and I didn't become that Wimbledon champion. So I became so obsessed with why my friends became champions. And then I became so interested in champions in all aspects of life, not only sport. And not everybody has to achieve goals and set goals. Some people are very content and satisfied and feel challenged just looking at themselves and growing in different aspects of life, or as long as they keep growing in all the different aspects of life. So yes, if you look at many legends, they have an extraordinary goal that they set for themselves, and then they work backwards and they have an extraordinary plan and an extraordinary routine with many multidisciplinary experts that give them input, and it's scientifically organized for them to achieve this extraordinary goal. Because all actually champions or people who achieve great goals are just ordinary people who have an extraordinary preparation routine, as the Rolf spoke about. You have to prepare. It's all about the preparation. So there's that, but there's also people, and I have Amanda Kutzer, only the tennis people will know her, but I'm going to say it anyway, because she was the first person I went to when I failed. She made it to 3 in the world, and I made it to 400. And so I went to her to interview, to figure out, well, she's going to have all the answers. And I was really disappointed, because one of what she said to me is that, she seemed so ordinary in her answers. And just in terms of goals, she said she never had the dream of winning Wimbledon or becoming 3 in the world. All she did was, at every level of tennis that she was playing, she would then set another goal to achieve the next level, and then the next level, and then the next level. So everybody's different. And I think it's important for you to know for yourself what inspires you most and what makes you more fulfilled, growing step by step, or having this big, crazy goal that you feel is going to change you and keep you growing.
Toni, after we've spoken to Rabbi Dovid Katz, we're going to say to you, can you give us 4 or 5 things that turns one into a champion? Give us some advice when it comes to that. But before we do that, I flippantly said earlier, I said to you, are these people insane? And you had the most fascinating answer, because the answer is, of course, yes, but aren't we all?
Absolutely. And it's so interesting, because when you really get to know yourself, when you have a self-awareness, and to achieve climbing Kilimanjaro, or to achieve anything big, or to grow as a human being, the first step is about awareness. It's about the recognition of, in performance psychology, they say self-talk. But for me, it's this internal chatter. And it's really about the recognition of this internal chatter. And when we're aware of our internal chatter, then everybody will realize that we are all insane. And in the sense that there's so much going on in our heads, and it's our job to focus. Rabbi Hazdan said it was all about focus. When the moment of truth arrived, when he saw this mountain, it was all about focusing on the next step and the next step. And so, yes, we are all on the continuum of insanity if we attach ourselves to the crazy thoughts in our head. And so that I think it's important for us to realize that all those thoughts are just thoughts. And our key is to bring ourselves back to the focus, the moment, and finding meaning and opportunities and appreciating each moment so that each moment can be a growth moment, despite the fact that we have all crazy thoughts at different points of our lives, whether it's inside our minds or whether it's in relation to our challenges or to others.
So when we are starting to visualize what this webinar would look like, and we're having a meeting, and Britt Landsman said, but hold on, there's a rabbi in the UK that we wrote about in the Jewish Report who climbed Kilimanjaro and Mount Meru with Rabbi Shishler. And I called up Rabbi Shishler. Unfortunately, he wasn't available today, but we went to the source. Rabbi Dovid Katz, welcome. Fantastic to have you joining us.
Pleasure to be here.
So tell us what you've done that's unusual and extraordinary when it's come to similar feats that Rabbi Dovid Hazdan has engaged in.
So we've done Mount Meru, as you mentioned, which is adjacent to Mount Kilimanjaro. Whilst we're still on the continent of Africa, I recently did a bike ride along the coast, all the way 500 kilometers. And then we did the Argus. So that took a week and a bit. So that's an expedition we did. But we climbed the Great Wall of China, but not like the way most people come, where they just get a little bit of an experience of 5 minutes, but we did a whole full week to really experience it and really physically climb it. There's parts that you need to really, with your hands, grab onto pieces to really move up. We've been to Peru and done Machu Picchu, which is an amazing, amazing trek. In India, we went up the Himalayas from a place called Dharamsala. In Nepal, we've done a place which is called Annapurna Circuit, which was a great climb. So these are a few of the expeditions that we've had. Obviously in Switzerland, close to home, in Europe also, Mont Blanc.
So Rov, the question really is why? What drives you to do this?
It's funny, I was listening to Tony's answer. You know, Tony, you were saying why people go and climb mountains and they want to change and different. Rabbi Hazdan would know. We grew up, myself, you also, with Avram Fried. He's a very famous Jewish singer. And he has a song, which I remember already for many years, and it goes with the words, life is a mountain you must climb. That's how it starts. And he goes through all the parallels of climbing a mountain and life. And he talks about in the song how sometimes you fall, you tumble down, but you get up and you climb again. And then the chorus of the song is keep climbing. And I think that all these messages that we heard from Rabbi Hazdan and how he was so amazingly relating the anecdotes, the stories of life on a mountain to life at home is because life is climbing a mountain. Really, that's what it's all about. So it's the correlations are so easy, accessible, because really life is climbing a mountain. And I think people go out and they climb a mountain because it's taking something which is a concept, a non-tangible idea of climbing a mountain spiritually, this idea of emotionally climbing mountains, and translating it to something physical and having something that we can, with our senses, feel what it means to climb a mountain. That, I think, is a very strong reason. It had, an effect, I think, psychologically. But the reason why I started climbing mountains is very different. Contrary to Rabbi Hazdan, it wasn't on the bucket list. But I grew up in Israel. I'm Israeli, born and bred in Yerushalayim. And Israelis, when they come out of the army, they all go trekking in India and Nepal, all these places. And we have a Chavaras in London. And because I'm Israeli, so a lot of Israelis come. We do Friday night dinners. We have 100, 200, 300. And they're always sharing with us the stories of these treks and mountain climbings. And I've heard basically all the stories from South America and Australia and all these places. And I said, it's always intrigued me, but I never really, was something nice to hear about. And it kind of maybe ignited a little interest. But what actually started it properly was a rabbi in India, who is a shaliach. He's got a Chabad in the mountains, in Dharamsala, in the Himalayas. And he came to our Chabad. I was back in Hendon at the time. And he gave a talk about life in the mountains and the treks that he leads. He takes Israelis and he takes them on a trek. And it was fascinating. So just as a spare of the moment, I turned around to the people in the room. I said, this sounds amazing. Should we go and do it? Let's have a trek in the Himalayas. And they said, yeah, let's do it. So we flew to India, literally a few months later, and we did our first trek. And Rabbi Hazdan, I'm listening to you telling me how you prepared and how people told you can do it, you can't do it. I'll tell you, my first experience, the first time we did it, was we had no idea that you need to prepare. We just, thought, yeah, you go, you climb a mountain. What's the problem? We could do it. So we just went and we started climbing a mountain with no preparation, no getting up at 4 o'clock in the morning, no training. We just thought, why not? And oh boy, did we learn our lesson. There's a prayer that we say every morning in Shachar, Kol HaNeshama Hallelujah, Hallelujah, which talks about the soul. Every soul praises God. When I said that prayer that morning, it's instead of neshama, I said neshima. Neshima means breath. Every breath I took, I said, thank God I could take another breath. And we had a rabbi with us. He came from Tzfat. His name is Amram Moyal. He came to be with us. And he also we didn't know. We were so gullible. We didn't know we had to prepare. Remember I said, I have this picture. It was the first trek we did. It's like 15 years ago. He just, at a certain point, he lied on a rock. And he said, God, take me. I'm done. I cannot take even one more step. It was so tough. And what turned out in the end, that this rabbi who was leading us, he knew well before that you need to train. He'd take many treks. He led many people. And he didn't tell us anything. And what was the reason? We only found out afterwards. We were a group of 15 people, secular people, more religious people, myself. The majority was people from the Chavaras. And his job, his name is Rabbi Dror, he was in the army. He was a secular Jew, he became a Chabad rabbi, a shaliach in north of India. What was his job in the army? His job in the army was to take stubborn soldiers that have ego, soldiers that think that they know everything, specifically soldiers that grow up in affluent places, they've had, life has been on a silver tray for them. And he takes them into the desert. And he just drops them in the middle of nowhere. And he says, here's a rope, here's a flashlight, a bottle of water, see you tomorrow. And he disappears. And these kids, they don't know what to do. And they're like, what? Is it you for real? And they monitor them from far away, but they have no idea they're being watched. And literally, they break down, these kids, the 18-year-old, 19-year-old. And then eventually some of them manage to make it to safe haven, some don't, they rescue them. But once they're totally broken and suddenly it breaks into the core, they rebuild them from scratch, from fresh, and they instill in them values. They help each other. They watch what they do. And he did the same thing to us. He broke a lot of people. And then we spent Shabbat together, and it was like the stories that people had, because they reached point blank. They reached a place where they never believed that they would get to, kind of triggered the freshness from the core of their soul that they never knew that they had, this resilience. It was an unbelievable experience. I'll tell you, for me, once in a lifetime, that was enough. The next treks that we did, we trained. And boy, did we train. So like you say, and all the different techniques of training to be physically fit, but also for the altitude and all these things. But that was an experience which you can only experience that once, because once you've been through it, it's not going to happen again. So that was my first experience with treks.
So when you decide to do, for example, Mount Meru, and now Mount Meru towers over Arusha in Tanzania, it's quite a technical climb, while Kilimanjaro is a hard hike, but Mount Meru is not so easy.
It's true. What happened with Mount Meru was, I'll tell you what, it happened like this. After we did the first trek, I went for different reasons, wanted to experience what it means to climb mountains, but I discovered the most amazing thing. And it happened just by chance from being on a trek, and I was relating to a lot of what Rabbi Hazdan was sharing, which you discover only once you're in the experience. And that is, people detach from their daily grind and they have time to think. When Rabbi Hazdan was saying that the last 7 hours, and you're taking step by step, and suddenly you're thinking about life, you're thinking about everything. So true. That's what happened. I attributed it to the fact that there was no reception, especially when we went 10, 15 years ago. There was, nobody had a satellite phone or anything. So it took a day or two to unwind, to forget about things that people have texted you, emailed you, complained about. Then your mind suddenly becomes clean. There is no clutter. There's nothing on the desktop, on the worktop. And you start thinking about life. You think about your wife. You think about your kids. You think about your job. You start talking to people. I had conversations with members of the congregation that I would never have in my life on a regular day. We spoke about the core, the real things that bother people, about marriage, about, where their place in life is, their relationship with Hashem. I discovered, wow, what you can achieve in these places. And especially when the first trek was in India, and we met people up in the mountains, and they were living in huts with no electricity, with nothing. And they came out and they said, "Namaste," with a big smile. "Can we offer you tea?" And it was so welcoming, hospitable. And then we got talking, and I said, "How much do you earn?" Turns out they earn $1 a day. I said, "You see what? It's not money that brings happiness. These guys have no money, no TVs, no shows. They don't go to the theater. They don't have flash cars, no watches." But they were really happy. They were content. That gets you thinking. You say to yourself, I'm never, ever going to complain again. I should complain with all the abundance that we have. I discovered what it does to a person. When I came back, I said, that's it. We are doing this once a year, every other year. It's such an opportunity for a rabbi to bond with the congregation. It's an opportunity to help people grow. Ladies, wives of men that came to me after the first trek. They said, "Rabbi, thank you for bringing me a new husband." Those were the words that they told me. They said, "It's a different person. What did you do that week? What did you talk about? How comes?" So ever since then, we learned how special treks are. So we decided doing the next one. And Rabbi Shishler is a very close friend. He'd been talking about us a few times to give talks. So I called him up. I said, "Rabbi, this is an amazing thing. Why don't you come with us? He's a great Fabrengenite, he has ideas, the flow of inspiration. Join us." And he said, "I know I'm going to join and come. I'll bring some of my guys." So we're discussing where should we go. And he said, "Look, I live in Africa. As a South African, there's not many places that I can go with my passport without a visa. This is easy. It's a great mountain. Let's do Kilimanjaro." So I said, "Fine. We'll meet the middle point. We'll come from London. You come with your guys from South Africa. Let's meet there." So we're debating Mount Meru, Mount Kilimanjaro back and forth. And what was explained to us was that if you climb Kilimanjaro, you don't get to see Kilimanjaro because you're on it. But if you climb Mount Meru, the views, the scenery is constantly Kilimanjaro. So that has an added aspect to it. So that's why we chose Mount Meru. So that was our second.
And of course, it's jungle. As Idi Amin said, all you need in that part of Africa is a machete and a bunch of bananas, and you can survive. You're going through the middle of a rainforest.
It's amazing.
I think along the way, certainly I've learned some interesting things. So on the first day of the Annapurna Trail at Fishtail Mountain from Pokhara in Nepal, my guide at the time was at school. And I learned something about how you utilize resources, because his school was from 4 p.m. to 8 p.m. every day, because there was a limit of classrooms. So the young kids go from 7 to 11, the middle kids go from 11 to 4, and the older kids go from 4 to 8. And I think that's a very interesting way that other places in the world, in the developing world, have realized that you can make a plan. With limited resources, you can always make a plan. But one of the questions I want to ask you, hiking along the Great Wall, also at places where you had to climb with your fingers, while all the Westerners were huffing and puffing and dying with exhaustion, along comes a group of Chinese ladies, and they're carrying bags with them, and in their backpacks and bags are cold drinks and books and things that, I mean, you're absolutely exhausted, but they are acclimatized. And Rabbi Hazdan, I'm sure you saw with your porters as well, these people do this, live this every single day. What is extraordinary for us is very ordinary for them. Tell us about some of those experiences that you had on the way.
Well, I'll tell you an amazing experience. It's exactly as you describe it. This is their life. So they live in a mountain. There's nothing there. If they want to go to their brother-in-law's wedding, for example, so by us, you get dressed, you get into a taxi, you go on the train. By them, the brother-in-law lives in the main city. So it could be in Kathmandu, it could be in wherever the closest big city. But them, it's a trek of a week. So they say, yeah, okay, I want to put on my boots and I'm going to walk for a week to go to my brother-in-law's wedding. They want to go to the dentist. There's no dentist up in the mountain. It's the exact same thing. It's a trek for a week. That's how they think. I'm going to the dentist. There's a week there and a week, and I have my procedure for a few hours, and then it's a week trek back. So like you say, that's amazing. But I'll tell you a funny experience that we had, and it was in India, and we were on top of this mountain. We're going through these villages. You see the difference between Kilimanjaro and trekking in Nepal and in India. Kilimanjaro is a freestanding mountain. There's no life on it. There's nobody living there. In the Far East and in Peru, there are people. You go through villages, you're traveling and you're meeting people all the time. And we came to this village when I say village, there's nothing there, just a few brick houses. That's what they live. They're farmers, they're planting rice, and they're so happy they have everything they need. So one guy comes out and he said, Israel. I said, yeah, Israel. Yeah. He said, come, I want to speak to you. Fine. So we came in, we thought it's an opportunity for rest, and he made us some nana tea. He had, he took some splint stones, he lit the fire with some straw, he boiled the water, which was coming from these plastic bottles. How he had them, I don't know, because there's no running water there. And he took the leaves, he crushed it, he made us some tea. So we're sitting having tea, we're talking, he wants to understand how life in Israel is. It was fascinating to talk to us. And then eventually he says to us, tell me, how many Israelis are there? I want to know about the Israelis. He said, how many Israelis are there? So I said to him, there's about 6 million Israelis. So he said, no, I don't mean on the mountains in India. I mean, how many in Israel? Because there are obviously so many trekkers and backpackers. He really believed that I was talking about the mountains. So that was a funny experience. But I showed you a funny experience that we also had in Africa. You mentioned Arusha, which is where we started our trek, and then we came back down. We never stayed for Shabbat. This is going to be our trek, which we're doing in 6 weeks to Everest Base Camp. It's going to be the first one that we're staying in for Shabbat. And I was listening to a lot of what you were saying. I was debating, should I take my kapota? Now I don't have to debate. And I wrote my notes, make sure you make an Eruv, and don't forget this, don't forget that. So it was picking up a lot of very important tips to use on the current trek. But anyway, so this trek, we always start on Sunday, finish by Shabbos. So we came literally on Friday afternoon. We arrived back from Mount Meru, and we're staying in a place. It was called Lake Manyara Lodge. I don't know if you know this place. It's actually a 5-star hotel. It's beautiful. And we came in, and we thought we need to cook for Shabbat. We need to prepare. And they said, sure, no problem, they were so kind, hospitable. Went to the back kitchen. All of us, we started peeling potatoes, and the chefs came and they helped us, the African chefs, and they were preparing the fish, which we double wrapped, put in the oven. And that was all great for Friday night. And then we said, okay, it was literally half an hour before Shabbat. We were big rush because we were late. We said, we need to prepare the chulin. So the chef said, chulin? What's chulin? We said, okay, we'll show you. We took potatoes and we peeled them. We had some beans, we had meat. And we put it on, and we said, we need like a little fire that's going to be lit the whole Shabbat. They couldn't understand what you're talking about, fire. Anyway, we found this place. We put the pot, this big pot of chulin, on the fire. And the guy said, put it on slow cooking, so very small fire. And they said, what is this chulin? They were so intrigued. The sous chef, the head chef, the waiter, they were all coming to check. It was like the talk. Everyone was saying, this chulin. Anyway, he said to us, so when do you eat it? In an hour? I said, no, I explained. This stays all night. We eat it tomorrow morning. They've never heard of a dish that stays on the fire all night. It doesn't make sense. They couldn't grasp such a thing. You don't understand. Shabbat, children all night. It took a long time to really explain, please don't touch the fire, don't turn it off. Because they would say, what time should we come turn off the fire? Is it 1 a.m. No, put a big sign, don't touch the fire. And finally, I think the penny dropped that this dish, children, sits all night on the fire. It was so amazing. Anyway, the next morning, we couldn't believe our eyes. It was 12 o'clock in the afternoon. And it was Shabbat morning. We finished our davening. And we said, okay, Kiddush time. Let's go bring the chulin. And the head chef had asked me maybe 10 times, what time you have this chulin? What time you have this chulin? So we said around midday, 12 o'clock. Anyway, so we put this chulin pot off this fire. We still have 15 of us to have the chulin. There's a knock on the door. We open the door. The head chef puts his head to a black guy from Africa. He said, I hope you don't mind, but we're so intrigued with this chulin. Can I have a taste of this chulin? I said, sure, come on in. Little did they know that he had a trail of 30 people, the chefs, the waiters, the whole staff of the hotel, and all came for a bowl of chulin. So if you ever go to Lake Manyara Lodge and you see on the menu, it says chulin, it came from our group.
Rabbi Katz, tell us, you've done the Inca Trail. You're hiking through the mountains. You're at high altitude. You've come from Cusco and you're on the train and you get off along the train and you start your hike and you finally come to the Sun Gate and you look down at Machu Picchu in front of you. Tell us what you feel at that moment, besides for the desire to go to Aguas Caliente to sit in the hot springs later that day.
Well, I'll tell you what happened. You touched on a point, which is an amazing story also. We climbed the Machu Picchu. We joined the Chabad. The rabbi is called Rabbi Ofer Kripo. He's the rabbi of Cusco. We called him up. We said, we're coming to Mount to Peru. We want to climb the Inca Trail. Would you help us? Would you join us with the cooking there? We stayed in tents. There is no villages. It's a bit different. And he said, sure, and I'll bring a few of my guys too. So we started this trek together with a group of Israelis who had just come out of the army, but they came from very, very left-wing kibbutzim in Israel. And as Rabbi Hazdan was describing exactly the same thing, I got up at 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning to break the eggs and to prepare the food. And these Israelis, they were a bunch of tough guys, tough cookies. They were really solid guys who'd been to the war, the army in Israel. And they, for some reason, were also getting up very early. To me, being a true Chabadnik, I said to them, guys, you want to put on Tefillin? And I'd never known them. I met them for the first time. There was a group of 4 of them. And they said, no, we don't know, no Tefillin, not interested. Fine. I'm telling you it's important to the story because you asked me about what we reached Machu Picchu, what happened. And we were trekking with them from Sunday all the way till Friday morning, which is when we reached the Machu Picchu and what you see. And every morning I would say to them, do you guys want to put a Tefillin? I didn't give up, even though they gave me this cold look. I asked, and they always said no. But we trekked for 5 days and we spoke along the way. We had tough conversations. Does God exist? Does he not? Why do good things happen? Why do bad things happen to good people? Where's God here? What are people in Gaza? All the questions they had, we talked about it. So there was a friendship, but they didn't want to put on Tefillin. So on Friday morning, we arrived, like you described, at the top of Machu Picchu. If you haven't seen that, that is a sight to see. It is the most amazing scenery. You see suddenly in the middle of nowhere, it's all green around, and there's granite, big mountains. And suddenly you see what the Inca had built and these little houses, and you just gasp. You go, wow. And your breath stops. It's something so special to see, a sight to see. I guess, Howard, you've seen it. It's so special. So we're just looking and we're gazing. And suddenly, as I'm taking this in, I was just sitting I have a picture of it, sitting at the edge of this rock, taking it in, looking at this majestic and seeing, obviously, you know the story of the Inca and how they built it. We learn it along the way. It's amazing what they did there. And I feel a tap on my shoulder, turn around, and it's this one of these Israelis, these 4 Israeli tough guys. They just come out, Sayeret Matkal. It's like one of the top army units. And he goes, Rabbi, do you know what this mountain is? I said, what is that? He says, this is called Huayna Picchu. Remember Huayna Picchu? I said, what is Huayna Picchu? He says, well, on Machu Picchu, which is the top of the mountain, there's another mountain, a very thin, narrow mountain that goes up like a big tower. And it's called Huayna Picchu. Most people don't bother climbing it because they've reached Machu Picchu, they're so happy. And this has 400 steps to reach the top. And he goes, Rabbi, you up for a challenge? I said, what's the challenge? He said, why don't you climb up Huayna Picchu? I said, look, I'm after 5-6 days of a trek. I'm so happy. Let me take this in. This is beautiful. He goes, no, Rabbi, come on, you could do this. The 4 of us, we're climbing up Huayna Picchu. Why don't you join us? I said, no, I'm very happy. I'll stay here. He goes, you know what? I've got a deal for you. I said, what's the deal? He says, if you come with us, we'll put on Tefillin. Now, I couldn't believe that. 5 days I'm asking him to put on Tefillin. Suddenly he said, come for Chabadnik, that's a deal. I said, sure, let's go. So I got up. We're walking towards the bottom of this big tower, Huayna Picchu. We're about to start climbing this 400 stairs. And then they say, but you know, Rabbi, there's a twist. This deal has there's a caveat to it. I said, what's that? They said, you need to get there to the top before us. If you reach before us, we'll race you to the top. We'll put on the tefillin. I said, come on. How can I do that? You guys, tough guys. I'm a Chabad rabbi. They said, that's the deal. You want it? Yes or no? I said, I'll do it. And they said, you know what? In the Hebrew, you say, Ani tel lecha for. They're like, I'll give you a head. I said, okay, I'll take that. So I went maybe 20, 30 stairs ahead. And I'm like, you know, maybe this is like 5-story building, 20, 30 steps. That's all. Maybe a bit less. And they said, have you reached 30 steps? I said, yeah. They said, okay, we're following. I started running like a Meshuggah. I remember I've been 5 days trekking. Rabbi, the altitude is low. But my Chabad gene, I said, the Rebbe wants you to put the tefillin on these guys. I'm not giving in. I started running. And I can tell 400 steps. And they're not the stairs. Some are high, some are low. I could feel my knees. It was painful. I was dripping. You know, I was going like this sweat. I could go like this. I could fill a bucket. And I could hear them huffing and puffing behind me. And they were really giving me a run for my money. And I was running and they were doing their best. But I said, I'm not giving in. And I really ran. And not to show off or boast or anything. It was the tefillin. I said, I got to do this. And I got there first. literally seconds before. And these guys coming out the top units of the army, and I felt so proud. And true to their word, every single one of them rolled their sleeves and they put tefillin on at the top of the wine picture. I have a picture with them. But you know, the story doesn't end. They were so proud, the rabbi was the talk of the thing. This Chabad rabbi managed to run forward before us. I couldn't believe it. By the way, I forgot about this story. And a year later, there's a knock at the door in my Chabad in Hendon. And a guy comes in. He says, Rabbi, do you remember me? I said, no, I don't remember you. He says, Rabbi, I'm Omri. I said, who? Omri what? He said, Rabbi, you raced me to the top of the mountain in Mount Meru and Machu Picchu. Do you remember? So of course, I was you. And I met him there. Anyway, he said, I've come to London. I'm here to help. And he stayed for 6 months in the Chabad. He helped me do every Friday, the Friday night dinners for the backpackers, 200 people. We have such a great relationship. We became best friends. We studied. He even gave me a little plaque with a picture of it. So we had developed the most amazing relationship. All from that racing to the top to do the tefillin. So from the top of Huayna Picchu, I got an even better vision of that majestic site.
So if I can share one tefillin story quickly. I was in India in the Rajasthani desert, and I was at the holy city of Pushkar, so holy that you're not permitted eggs or meat or alcohol in the city. And at night, as the sun sets, because you're in the middle of the desert and there's sand and dust in the desert, the sky goes blood red and orange, and it reflects down into the holy lake of Pushkar. And people come with drums, and they're beating their drums on the banks of the holy lake, and all the hippies are coming and they're dancing to the drums. And in the middle of all of this comes the Chabad rabbi of Pushkar shouting, tefillin, tefillin. So of course I couldn't resist, and I put on tefillin on the banks of the holy lake of Pushkar. And I sent a picture back via WhatsApp to Rabbi Hazdan. And his response was, so in Pushkar, you're prepared to put on tefillin.
Amazing.
So Toni, having heard that story, give us the secrets. What's the magic sauce? What allows us to succeed when life challenges us with these challenges? In all the research and all the things that you've studied and looked at, what is the magic sauce of champions, and how can we incorporate that into our daily lives?
Sure, that is a massive question. There is so much, but I'm really going to distill it. Most of you know these qualities, and I'm just going to mention them anyway. So you probably could distill like the recipe to achieving a goal, to having a burning desire to achieve a goal or to conquer a challenge or to manage a challenge well. You really want to do that. Number 2 is the discipline. That you need incredible discipline to wake up every morning and to do what it takes, to do what is needed in order to prepare for that goal. And then again, the focus on, it's so interesting for me that 2 rabbis climbed these amazing mountains, because in their daily life, they pray, and they pray regularly. And that builds a muscle of focus. And to achieve anything in life, we need to be able to focus. We need to be able to take our minds away from that internal chatter and focus on the task at hand and focus on what's important. So for daily life, it's to focus on what's important, whatever that challenge may be. And then if it's something great that your big, hairy, audacious goal, it's focusing on your preparation schedule that was set out for you, that you know you have to accomplish or you have to conquer. And then the other quality is always learning. There always needs to be a time, and Rabbi Hazdan really spoke about it a lot, that there's a time of reflection. And after you've done whatever needs to be done, for champions in their scheduled routines of mental and physical practice, there's a time of reflection and learning, and how I can do the day differently and better to accomplish better the next day. So I'm marrying a champion's journey with an everyday journey. But what I really want to speak about, which is quite unique, which is different to what you hear in the books, what I've noticed is that it's all about how the greats the ones who have very fulfilling lives. I'm talking, when I say greats, I'm talking about the legends that I've studied, particularly in sport. And I'm interested in the ones who have been super successful in their sport and in other aspects of life. And those legends are very aware. They know themselves so well. They're very aware of their strengths, but they're even more aware of their struggles. And I found that because they're so aware of their struggles, their own internal struggles, and how that relates to their everyday challenges, they learn over time strategies and tools and resources to fortify those struggles. And that's so important. So that's absolutely critical. I would say that's the most important for me. What I've realized is that awareness, that knowing the self, but really knowing not only your strengths, which is spoken about so much, but even more so your weaknesses. Because in great challenges and in everyday challenges, it is your weaknesses that are going to be triggered and are going to hold you back. So that's really critical. And the other one I wanted to say is they are brilliant at how they handle failures, how they handle mistakes, how they handle losses, and more importantly, how they handle their negative thinking. And they've learned over time to look back on their failures and their losses and their mistakes and really use them as platforms to move forward upon and to learn and to grow. And it's so hard to do that because, sure, any mistake, even a little personal mistake on a daily basis makes us feel terrible. And it's about just tolerating that horrible feeling, and they reappraise, and they say, how can I think about this differently? How can I learn about this little mistake or this big failure? And in that sense, that really builds them and builds their self-belief, builds their confidence, and gives them the impetus to continue on their journey and really enjoy their journeys to become better every day, whether it's a tough, hairy, audacious goal journey, or it's us facing our daily challenges with our families, with work, with illnesses, whatever is thrown in our path.
So we're going to lose Rabbi Dovid Katz in about 6 minutes because his son has got an online graduation. So if you have any questions for any of the rabbis or Toni, please ask them now and we'll put these questions to them. But Rabbi Katz, Paul Blumberg wants to know, he says, when you were standing at the summits of all of these mountains, did you have a sense of humility knowing that you are closer to Hashem than ever before? Or does Hashem live in our hearts and doesn't necessarily increase with our altitude?
Yeah, 100%. As Rabbi Dovid Hazdan said that, when you're top of the mountain, the humility that you feel is unbelievable. You look around and you say, Mara Buma Secha Hashem, how great are your creations, God. It does bring so much humility to see that the world is so majestic, inspiring, so much detail, more than what you see in your city at the daily grind. As a matter of fact, we even joked about it because when we were climbing in India, so as you know, the mountains are called the Himalayas. But Himalayas in Yiddish is the same word as Himmel, which means sky. And, always the Yid always says, looking up to Himmel, coming close to Hashem is referred to the sky. So when you're in the Himalayas, you feel close to Hashem. Indeed, I can tell you that people on this trip, I've done already 6 treks, 15 people approximately every time, so doing close to 100 people from all backgrounds of life. And some people that, they're very tough and what you would call secular or distant or not connected, they open up in the most amazing way, because what it does, being up on those mountains, it doesn't matter who you are. It brings humility. You see, I don't think it's so much the big mountain that causes humility. It's just being in nature, being close to Hashem without distraction, that has such an influence on a person that you do feel a speck of dust, not insignificant, not you feel like you're a nothing. To the contrary, you feel how the world is so powerful, God is so strong, and how proud you are to be part of God's mission and how God sent you to this world for a purpose. It brings within you, you know what, I really need to live up to what I can really do, climb my mountain and reach this great height when I come back. So definitely 100% it does give a person, puts things in perspective.
Rabbi Katz, the last question I have for you, which I'm going to ask you just after I ask Rabbi Hazdan to comment on something, but the last question I'm going to ask you is, what's next? Tell us about the next thing up. But before you do that, Rabbi Hazdan, we keep on hearing from Toni about the issue of discipline. And do you think that maybe being from, being religious, being a rabbi has instilled in you life's discipline? You're praying 3 times a day. You're going through rituals every day. No matter what's happening, you're putting on tefillin. Is that the same sort of discipline in your day-to-day life that has helped you to do what you've managed to achieve?
So Howard, I don't know what's the same or not. I don't know if you can compare the same, but there's no doubt that Judaism does construct a life in which there are choices. There's consciousness. There's an ability to determine the moment. Sometimes we're stronger at it than others. So, but no doubt, we live a disciplined life. What was so intriguing to the porters and to the owner of the company that took us, Asante Tours, was the fact that there was such a regularity that superseded the experience. There wasn't a question if we would be davening or not davening. They knew that this was going to happen in the morning. If it's hot or cold, or if it's uncomfortable or not, this is the plan. This is how it works. We wash before we eat, and we all the things that we used to. So I do think that there is a consciousness and awareness of choices, and a mastery of situations that don't control us, but that we utilize for whatever it is that we want to achieve. And I think it can be shifted into different areas of our life. I think the mountain gave me opportunities to look at my discipline in religion and up the game, as we've just heard from Rabbi Katz, that we learned so much, not so much how my religion can make me a better marathon climber, but how can the mountain climbing experience and its discipline can add and broaden the dimension of the discipline of life in religion.
Rabbi Katz, what's next?
Just before I go to what next, and to add to the previous question, when you asked Rabbi Dovid Hazdan, you were saying, does the mountain put a person in humility? Which is true, it does, but there's a flip side to it. And there was the famous story of Sir Edmund Hillary, who was the first person to conquer Everest, which is where we're going on our next trip. But what most people don't know is that he failed the first time he went. He went on an expedition, and there was a lot of money invested in him, and he tried, and he didn't manage to make it to the top, and he gave up, and he came back to England. And there was a conference that was held over here, and he was talking about it, and there was a big picture of the Everest behind him when he was talking. And he was talking about why they failed, what didn't work. And at a certain point, he turned around to the mountain, and he looked at the mountain, looked at the picture, and he said, Everest, Everest, I failed this time, but I'm coming back again. And next time, I will win. I will conquer, and I'll reach the top. And he turned around to the mountain. He said, you know why I will win you? He said, because you're a mountain, but you never grow. Wherever you are, that's the maximum you will ever be. But I'm a human being. And we as human beings, we can grow. And I can reach even higher than I was yesterday. And that's why I know I'm going to win. So mountains can be very inspiring. They can put us in humility. But as big as they are, we must remember that us as humans, we're even greater than mountains. And we're capable more than the highest mountain. So we're now going to Everest. We're not climbing Everest itself because that's a different ballgame. You need to train in a total different way. We're going to Everest Base Camp. And this is we're going to do a 10-day trek. So for the first time, we're going to be Shabbat in a mountain. We're going to acclimatize as you did. Over Shabbat, we're taking a small Sefer Torah. And the Chabad rabbi in Nepal, in Kathmandu, Rabbi Chesky Lifshitz, is helping us. And he's going to provide all the food, kosher food. So I know you said you did some cooking and stuff. And I saw some people asking about how kosher food. So we have it a bit easier because so many more tourists from around the world want to come to Everest Base Camp and Everest Mountain. So apparently there's a helicopter service that leaves every single day from Kathmandu, and it goes to the different villages, Namche Bazaar and different ones along the trail. What Rabbi Chesky has done is he's arranged with the helicopters that every morning they're going to take fresh food from the Chabad house and bring it to the place where we're going to arrive that evening. So We're going to have proper cooked food every single day. Shabbat, we're going to have our chulent. I said, no Shabbat in the mountain without chulent. So we're going to have the chulent. We're going to have everything up there. So please go, we have all the food arranged, and we're really looking forward to this trek. It's the highest we're ever going to go because it's even higher than Everest Base Camp. It's higher than the African mountains and South American mountains. Amazing how high it is. So we're really looking forward to a lot of training. I'm doing 4 times a week in the gym. So I want to be properly prepared to really enjoy. I find that people don't prepare well enough. They lose out. You make such an effort and you come up there and you're huffing and puffing. You're not really taking in the scenery. You're not really experiencing it. This time we're also doing something different we never did before, because JLI did a course on meditation, which I took here. So we're going to take that course up there with every day a different meditation class, different aspect. So this is the next trip. And if anyone wants to join, you're more than welcome. If you've been on this webinar, I will let you join.
I can tell you, I've had a meal at the Chabad of Kathmandu. You're in for a great treat. I was there over Hanukkah. I've had sufganiyot, donuts, absolutely delicious. Make sure they send some up with the helicopter. Rabbi Dovid Katz, thank you so much for joining us this evening. If I can keep our other guests for just another five minutes, and if I can ask everyone who's watching us tonight on Zoom, on YouTube, and on Facebook, just to leave us a message and leave a message for our guests as well, that would be absolutely amazing. So, Toni, you have this concept of there's champions and there's whole champions. What do you mean by that?
Where have you found that, Howard? I haven't mentioned that today at all.
You think I don't do my research before webinars?
So it's so interesting when I devastatingly failed this dream to win Wimbledon. It was all about studying why people achieve these incredible goals. And it was only about sports people and world champions. And when I started studying these world champions, I started to realize, some of these people are brilliant at their sport, but they're terrible at other aspects of life. They're terrible at their families. They struggle to redefine themselves after they've achieved this goal. They don't have any other resources, or they aren't able to expand themselves and live a different life. And so then I started to look at champion sports people and remarkable people, not only sports people, but remarkable people in all aspects of life, but then studying their personal lives and looking at their relationships and looking at their spiritual beliefs and looking at their contribution to community and those other aspects of life. And I was very interested in those champions, and those are the champions I'm passionate about growing. And what was interesting about those champions is the humility of those champions really stuck out. And for them, it was very much about, like I've said, great athletes, great legends, they know their weaknesses so well, is because the weaknesses that they become very familiar with, they not only are triggered on the sports field, but they're also triggered in all the different aspects of life that they interact in when they're not playing. And when they learn those strategies really well, they begin growing not only in their sport and becoming strong in their sport, but they begin growing even more in all aspects of life. And these champions then have a long-term success because it's all about the journey for them. It's all about being a better person and a greater person on the field and off the field. So they have more enjoyment on their journey. It's not about winning a particular goal and being so strong and being so fantastic. It's about growing as a human being on and off the field. And then not only that, if they do give up, which many have to, give up their careers, give up their sport, they are able to redefine themselves because they are broad characters. They really are able to look at themselves deeply, grow, and they're broad characters in the sense that they have different interpersonal repertoires, so they can contribute to community, they can reinvent themselves and become a psychologist if they're a failed tennis player.
Rolf, the last word from tonight's webinar is going to come to you, but before you tell us your last lesson that you want to share for life, we just want once again to say a huge thank you to Cape Union Mart for having sponsored tonight. We'll show their advert at the end, and also to remind everyone that we'll be back on Thursday night with our Pesach webinar as well, and that's going to be cooking and recipes and words of religion and encouragement and stories from Egypt. and archaeology and Israeli former diplomats in Egypt. It's going to be a fascinating webinar on Thursday night. But Rabbi Dovid Hazdan, I want to give you the final word of the evening, of the great lessons that you've learned and the lessons that you now impart to all of us, having gone through summiting the highest peak in Africa.
Thank you so much, Howard. I've learned so much from both Rabbi Katz and from Toni and their input. Firstly, I want to argue with Rabbi Katz, if I'm allowed to, on this public forum, that mountains don't grow. I have my personal experience. I hiked the Grand Canyon about 30 years ago, and then I hiked it again about 10 years ago. In those 20 years, this Grand Canyon grew significantly. There was no doubt about it. Something happened. What I want to share in terms of messages is that I was speaking to the high school students. And the message that I wanted to give them is that when you wake up in the morning, you could wake up for a variety of reasons. Lowest on the reasons that are possibly generating you to get out of bed is that there's a teacher or a principal waiting, and they might say that you came late, and who knows, maybe even a detention or a punishment or a remark. So that might be a reason. If that's the reason we get up in the morning, we failed before we even get to school. When we own a goal, and every person can own a goal. In the chat, it's been discussed that the mountain is not about the public, what about private people? That's really the point of this whole seminar. Every single one of us is a mountain climber. You don't have to go to Tanzania. You can do it in your backyard and in your home. And the first thing is, have a goal. The goal is a week or a 2 week or a month. Achievable, attainable, real, that can affect your life. It might be spiritual, it might be learning, academic, it might be religious, it might be relationship, whatever that goal is, then own it. This is not because of anyone else. This is my goal. This is mine. And if I own it, then it drives me to achieve everything that I'm going to achieve. And on the way, turn every challenge into the opportunity it is. 4:30 in the morning is dark. By the time it was 5:30, the sun was coming up from Monroe Drive. I've never seen Johannesburg look so beautiful. I've never seen sunrises like that because I just wasn't there at that time of the day. So don't only go by the long-term journey and goal. Be mindful of the present moment and the opportunities that lie in that moment right now. Enjoy it. Seize it. Take hold of it. Every single person in business, in every realm of life, needs to have a goal. What do I want to achieve for the next 6 months, or the next month, or the next week, or the next 5 years? And when we know our goal and we own it, this is my project. I'm not doing it to benefit anyone else or to make somebody else feel proud of me. It's not about the public image. It's about my goal. And my hope is that anybody who's watched this seminar is not going to get out of this that Rabbi Hazdan was saying, you have to climb Kilimanjaro. I am saying it, but just partially. I'm saying, find your mountain, identify it, own it, and climb it. And very briefly, I want to say that there is a women's group by the same friendship circle that is now asking for people to join. You can look up Friendship Circle Kilimanjaro. The next group that's going up is women only. So maybe there's somebody out there that wants to do it. One after that will be for men as well. I might not be on it. Thank you so much. Thank you, Howard. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. We all have mountains to climb in our own lives. Let's go and conquer them all. Rabbi Dovid Hazdan, Toni Gaddie, thank you so much for joining us this evening. We'll see everyone on Thursday night again when we're going to be talking about Pesach. Chag Sameach to everyone if you don't join us on Thursday night. Good night, everyone. Thank you. And thanks once again to Cape Union Mart for sponsoring this evening.
Chag Sameach.
What's out there? Mountains are out there. 1,000 horizons are out there. Legendary places, trails, and memories are out there. It's all out there. So, are you really going to let a little winter stop you? Conquer the cold with K-Way.